Time is brief, so I'm going to tell this one. And this was told at my uncle's funeral. My uncle had throat cancer. He didn't speak the last few years of his life. A couple of weeks before he died, he called over his daughter, and he communicated by writing. And he said he can't leave the world until he told the story. And he was sworn to secrecy. And when I heard the story, he put together a couple of things in my life, an event in my life that I didn't understand. In the early spring of 1945, my father and his brothers were in Dachau concentration camp. And Dachau was one of the worst of the concentration camps. They did horrible things in Dachau. One of the things that they did was to make room for sick people. They would empty out the infirmary, what they call the infirmary, in January of 1945. They did this, and this one time I know about because I was told about it. And they stripped the sick people naked, and they threw them into the assembly point of Dachau. And just left them there to die. And the shrieking and the screaming in pain, and who knows what these people were going through. The cold. In the winter of 1945 was the coldest winter in 150 years. They were wearing pajamas as it is. They're sick. And now you're throwing them like dogs into the open air. So they're screaming until they just froze to death. That was the kind of place Dachau was. In Dachau, when you went into the infirmary, you didn't come out. You went into the ovens. 99% of the time. My uncle, this same uncle who just died, had, I forget what was that? It was a lung disease.
Emphysema?
No. It was a real bad lung disease. I can't think of the word right now. Oh, that's terrible. I know.
Mesothelioma?
No. It was tuberculosis. I think it was tuberculosis.
That's very bad.
I think it was tuberculosis.
Yes.
In any event, he had tuberculosis. They had no medication. And what they would do is they would put 3 people to a bunk. And if someone was injured, they would transfer the cotton or whatever they did to cover a wound. They would transfer it from one patient to the next. You didn't get fresh anything. This way, the disease spread very quickly inside the infirmary. There was a very demented nurse there who would come around every night with a needle. And in the needle was poison. And whichever patient humiliated himself the most, and God knows what they came up with in Dachau for humiliation, he got that precious gift of poison. He would shake for like 2 minutes, and then he'd be at peace. And the patients would vie for that, because the doctors that were there would do experiments which was worse than death. Horrible things happened in this infirmary that we don't know about, because almost nobody survived, and if they survived, they refused to talk about it. This uncle was there. So the law in Dachau was, if you were out after dark without permission, you were shot. If you left the barracks without permission, you were shot. If you went into the kitchen without permission, you were shot. If you went into the infirmary, everything, you were shot. This was his baby brother. My uncle had just turned 16 in 1945 when the story takes place. And my father went into the kitchen, got some water and got some food, went to visit him, which any point, at any step, he could have gotten shot. And he force-fed him water and something to eat. And my father begged him, let him die. He couldn't take it anymore, just let him die. My father said no, and he forced him. And he saw the 2 other people that were with him. And he went back to the barracks, and he did this every night for about almost 2 weeks. And he said these 2 other people take for them too. These 2 other Jews will take for them too. All 3 came out of the infirmary, which was, I think it was a record for Dachau, and all 3 survived. Fast forward that 30 years. I'm now a young teenager. Yeshiva Torah Vodaas is having a Malava Malka. I don't recall if it was Hanukkah time 1975 or for Tu B'Shvat 1976. But it was around that time. It was Malava Malka. And Torah Vodaas had a debt of about $250,000, if I recall. So we're there, and cousins of ours were there. And one of the rabbis got up, and he starts telling this story. In March 1945, he's in the infirmary, in Dachau. And what happened? A malach came to him and fed him challah and fed him wine. He said, this is challah for Shabbos and this is the wine for Shabbos. Drink it and eat it and you'll be healthy, and I don't remember what else he said. Because it was an amazing thing, and because he can't get over this, what had happened. And his cousin turned to my father and he goes, well, Mazel Tov, you've been promoted to malach. So my father, who was a very humble person, he did not want any of these stories known. He had a lot of them apparently. He didn't want them known. So he made a look with his, he pointed at me with his eyes. He didn't want me to know about it. But I didn't know what the story is, what the real story was. I didn't know what was going on until my uncle died. And I found out and understood this is what happened. So he became one of the big rabbis in Torah Das, one of the patients. The other one lived in Israel. I have no idea what happened to him. And of course my uncle lived. He outlived my father by how many years? 25 years?
You know, tremendous schus avos. There's no question about that. Both your father and your mother did spectacular. I mean, these are. You can't even call this gemilas chasadim. That would be a downgrade from what actually happened over here. So these are amazing stories, Steve, and I think it's important that everyone who listens to these stories should be inspired by what heights and what great things people can get to. That certainly describes your parents, your mother and your father. Also, they should be inspired at the same time, knowing that when a doctor says you're a vegetable, you're not a vegetable.
No, I don't mean you're a vegetable. And you should know, even when people are in comas, they hear. They know.
They hear. I do have many other stories about people in comas who don't even realize that they heard, and I will tell those on future broadcasts. But there's much more going on to this world. It would be wrong to not understand that everything in this world, while there are physical aspects, have spiritual aspects as well. And it's a big mistake that we make. We live in an age where everything is a consumer society, and we judge people by the amount of possessions that they have, which is a very, very, very big mistake.
It really is. I got news for you. You'd be surprised, especially these days, how often it happens that a person has a lot one day, and then it's taken away from him. And I've seen it many times in my life, and people are crushed. They don't know how to handle it.
Anyway, Steve, I do want to thank you. Believe it or not, you have created enough material. Literally, it's 2 hours now. So there's enough here for 2 radio programs, according to my clock. But that's good. We will continue. We'll post this complete interview on the web. We'll give you the address later on. But this is excellent. And I want to thank you for the chizuk, and I want to thank you for inspiration. I should say that one of Steve's videos, which describes, has been seen over 10,000 times on YouTube. But we're going to see how much this will work. Hopefully this will be downloaded. Thank you very much.
Thank you.